It's so good to have everyone here this morning on such a special morning when we are baptizing 6 people from our church family here into the church family. It's such a special day for them, but for us all as well, to welcome them into our family here in Basingstoke as people who follow Jesus. It's been an amazing time just getting these guys ready for baptism, and some of them are going to share their story with us today. So I'd love you to watch this video from a few of them just to get a snippet of the amazing journey that they've been on with Jesus.
So I don't think there was one thing that happened as such that made me change and come to faith, but I think I started to be a little bit more aware. At university, I saw a group come together every morning before lectures and pray, and I started to hear a few more friends talk about their experience with God. One day I was just sat having some reflection time on my bed when I was at uni. It was raining outside, it was quite a miserable day. I wasn't feeling anything in particular, I was just feeling quite neutral. But then all of a sudden I just had this very overwhelming feeling, started crying, and then it was after that moment I just felt like everything had been lifted. I felt very relaxed, very at peace, and it was after that I started to think maybe there is something more, and it was at that moment that I thought, this is God trying to tell me something.
I've never really talked about my faith too much before. For me personally, being baptised is that declaration in front of God to say, I want to follow you. So growing up, there was never any faith or religious element to my upbringing at all. I always just had a preconception of it's very strict and you need to follow this rule and this rule and this rule.
So I've always wanted to be baptised, and I think I'm ready to do it now and the time is now. Yeah, so I did a self-development course. That's how I was introduced to New Age things, because it spoke about manifesting and taking control of your life and trying to aspire to be your higher self. Luckily, I got brought back quite quickly in terms of it wasn't making me feel good at all. When I came out, I just feel so much peace in terms of my head and my heart is very much aligned now, because I knew there was a gap, but I wasn't understanding the gap, because to me, I thought I was working with good intentions and things like that, and I was just on the wrong path.
My son Romeo was born with a heart defect, had growth development problems, he wasn't feeding. We went into hospital for another procedure. Romeo passed away in his sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 12th of October 2021. But when that happened, it just made me think, how can there be a God? Something was telling me, buy the Bible, get the Bible. Get a Bible, get a Bible. And I was thinking, okay, why? But something was telling me, buy the Bible. And I was in a charity shop and I bought a Bible and started reading that. I did the Alpha course as well, and I remember being on the away day. They were praying for me, and this light just hit my face. Light hit my face, and I felt warmth. And we finished praying, and it felt like the Holy Spirit coming to me. But there was always that bit of doubt in my mind. I walked outside, went out the front of the building and had to look where the sun was and see where it was and the way I was facing to just see that it couldn't have been the sun. And then I just burst out crying. That's when I knew. That's when any doubt out of my mind was gone.
My best friend was getting married in a church, and they invited us along a couple of times to when they're doing a band's read out. So we went a couple of times. It was a bit very different to what I imagined it to be, in terms of the structure of the service, the music, the worship. Me and my wife just gradually started going to church more regularly. I think slowly just started seeing God's work and not just kind of pulling it down to happenstance. It became like a belief that actually God's working for us and for me.
I started meeting people that would talk to me about God a bit more, and it was really refreshing. And I just had this big nudge to go to church, and I literally was just sat at work and I was putting it off because I needed to go. I always thought you had to go on a Sunday, and then I saw the church was open on a Tuesday, so then I walked in. Because that's true. Then I sat there and I met Hazel.
So then it wasn't until I moved back to Basingstoke, I went to St Peter's for the first time. Someone said to me, why don't you try Alpha? And then from there everything kind of snowballed and has gotten me to where I am today. I'm super excited to get baptised. I think it's something that I never thought I was going to have done. And just because, again, like, I know how much of a positive influence and how much my life has changed since, I don't know, coming to faith, it should be a really wonderful opportunity to kind of declare my faith.
The biggest thing for me was when my mum died. During that period, I for some reason just had an overwhelming sense of calm and acceptance and understanding. God was telling me that she's okay, it's okay. That period of time, that really brought me closer to Jesus and to God.
And what's your favourite thing about your faith, your Christian faith?
Probably how I feel. And just
What is that feeling?
just joy. I always feel really joyful.
Believing in Jesus, it feels like my heart's full. It literally feels like it's going to burst most of the time. It just feels so amazing. Everything feels so much brighter, so much easier as well. It's not as if my situation has necessarily changed, but I just feel much more equipped to deal with anything that is thrown in my way.
I suppose when I think of Jesus, I just feel love. I think for me, he's just always someone that you can speak to, whether you always hear him or feel him or, you know, get a sign that he's heard you. You just know that he has. I just find that relationship piece quite special.
I was a complete atheist. I used to have the God Delusion book by my bed, which has now been replaced by the Bible. I'm new to faith. I don't know everything about Christianity, but I know that I have a relationship with Jesus, and I pray to him, and I know that he listens to me.
We are in a little preaching series at the moment. We're working through the book of 1 Peter, which is in the New Testament, a letter written to some of the early church. And what that has for us, I believe, is a message around hope. And this is not a hope that's just a sort of like, oh, I hope that'll be happening. I hope it won't rain this afternoon. This is a hope that is a certain thing that we discover, like an absolute certainty of what is to come and what is to be realized in Jesus that we can grab hold of right now. And we are in 1 Peter chapter 2 this week. And I want to talk to you about doing a crazy thing. Doing a crazy thing. The world and those who are not people who ever darken the doors of a church will think that this lot have done a crazy thing today. As they go to work or whatever they do tomorrow and say, oh yeah, somebody dunked me under some water in front of 400 people. Everybody will think they've done a crazy thing. As they talk about what they talked about, where they say, oh, my life has been completely different since I discovered Jesus. Like everything's been the same, but yet in it there's been this peace and this joy. They'll go, you were normal last week. The invite today is to do a crazy thing and to root your life in Jesus. Let me read to you from 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. What's that got to do with doing a crazy thing? This is an invite to these people who have discovered that their hope is in Jesus, to live as though their hope is in Jesus. This is an invite to people who've discovered that their home is in the kingdom of heaven, the place where God has invited them in, and they've gone, yeah, go on then. And discovered that that's where they find home, that's where they find peace, that's where they find relationship with the living God. And that feels quite different to the life of this world. And yet also they're still living here. I don't know if you can relate. I think what I find so powerful as we hear stories like we hear today, like Ella described her life as being basically the same as it was before, but also completely different. It's like everything around her is the same. She's still got the same job, the same friends, the same families, the same troubles, the same things going on, the same stuff coming against her, and yet somehow it feels completely different. It's like being in a different country, isn't it? Do you know when you go abroad, if you've ever done that, and you arrive and you're like, they've got food and people and cars and all, but somehow this feels different. You know, I think that's what Ella is describing. She's like suddenly discovered that she is a foreigner and an exile. This world is not her home. This is not where she's designed for, yet this is where we find ourselves. And yet when we know that, we can live like more comfortably. We can live going, it's all right because we'll go home eventually. We don't have to make something of ourselves in the way that we may be thought. Holly talked about this thing that she was getting into, this new age stuff, which about manifesting and like making these things happen and like digging into this world where you can almost think stuff into being. And don't we see that as we get our phones and scroll through social media? If that's what you do, you're like confronted by all these people going like, if you just behave in this way, everything's going to be okay. If you just think in this way, then your life will be perfect like mine. If you just run after this way of being or this particular form of success or this group that you can be a part of, everything's going to be okay. If you take control, and that's what Holly talked about. This sort of world that she'd stepped into of manifesting and taking control. If only just we could take control of the world, then it would all be okay. But I don't know if you've tried. It is quite difficult. I don't know if you've tried taking control of the whole world. But it is quite difficult. And so instead, we get invited to do a crazy thing. A crazy thing where instead of trying to take control of the whole world, instead of trying to build life that we think might possibly, maybe just about achieve us to be like those Instagram influencers or like that person on the telly or the person we read in that self-help book, if we could just lay that down and instead step into what Jesus has for us. To live as though we trust in Jesus rather than ourselves. To live trusting in the hope that we have in God rather than the hope that we have in our self-help book. To let God run the world rather than try to run it ourselves. If we do that crazy thing, two things have the potential to happen. Number one is that for you and for me, we will find peace and joy and relationship in a world that offers us none of those things. The second thing that will happen very likely is that people will think you've gone mad. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. Live lives that are so reliant on God amongst the people of Basingstoke that A, they'll think you've gone crazy, but one day when God turns up in their life, or when he comes again, which he will, they'll go, oh, I see. Oh, I thought they'd gone mad, but it turns out they knew something I didn't. When people think you're a little bit loony for having got baptized or having given your life to Jesus, when people think you've done a crazy thing, what's wrong with you? I'm sure you'll get over it eventually and we'll get the normal version of you back next week. When people think that, it's not because you have. When you tell people, I've got a really difficult thing in my life and I'm going to pray about it, and they go, good luck. It's not that you were wrong. It's that they hadn't seen what you have seen. They hadn't experienced what you have experienced. Each of those people being baptized today did it despite the fact that on a video in front of hundreds of people, they look a bit crazy. Because they have seen something. They have experienced something. Jimmy, in the middle of the worst circumstances of his life, saw light. In the darkest place, God turned up and shone light on him. And everything that was going on is still going on for him, and yet he has seen the light, quite literally. And he's now putting his trust in Jesus. Isn't it funny that, well, not funny, but fascinating that after Ash discovered Jesus, he then faced bereavement and challenge and difficulty. And it would be very easy in that place to go, oh, I was wrong about God. Like Jimmy said, there can't be a God if this is happening. But actually to discover that we are foreigners and exiles, this world is not our home. We're surrounded by rubbish stuff happening. Christianity doesn't say that rubbish stuff won't happen. Christianity says God is with you in the rubbish stuff. Christianity says that while you're walking through this world, it's a broken place, but a new world is coming where God's rule and reign says there will be no more tears or death, nor dying, nor shame, nor suffering, nor anything. And that is what we have hope in. But it's not a hope that just says one day, oh, one day we're all going to go to heaven. It's a hope that says we know it because by the power of his Holy Spirit, God is with you and me today. As Ella sat in her university room and went, I don't know what else to try. I might try praying, and God turned up. God said, I'm here. As Jimmy said, I don't know that there could even be a God. Something, and I believe this is God's Holy Spirit said, buy a Bible. Try Alpha. Discover who I am for you. Holly, after desperately trying to do things in the right way, like she's seeking after the things of the world to do I'm going to do this in the right way, I'm going to manifest it right, and then thought, well, maybe I could try church, but I can't even do that because I can't come on Sunday. God went, don't worry about all that because I'm here for you in the middle of it. So for you today, we have been inspired by stories of hope. We've been inspired by people who've said, do you know what? I've seen something here that means I'm going to do the crazy thing and tell the world that I'm trusting in Jesus and not myself. And today, the message is to you. Why not try doing the crazy thing? We've all got parts of our lives, me probably more than anybody, where we're desperately trying to control it, sort it out, work out the plan, make it all okay, bring about joy and peace in ourselves. But we come eventually to the end of ourselves. And at that point, we go, okay, God, over to you. Okay, God, I've tried this. I can't do it. Over to you. God promises to turn up.